What if the one thing that could help you stay strong after 60 costs less than $1 and is probably already sitting in your kitchen? Because here's the surprising part. Expensive protein powders aren't the only way to maintain or rebuild muscle as you age. In fact, many older adults quietly regain strength not through supplements, but through simple, everyday foods they've eaten for years, just used a little more intentionally. And this is where most people get it wrong. They focus only on protein, how many grams, how many scoops, but overlook something far more important: how well the body actually absorbs and uses that protein. Because after 60 or 70, digestion naturally slows down. You might eat enough on paper, but your body may not be breaking it down efficiently. And when that happens, even the most expensive powder can fall short. But this is where whole foods begin to stand out. Unlike processed supplements, real foods come with something extra: natural enzymes, minerals, and cofactors that quietly support digestion and absorption. It's not just about feeding your muscles, it's about giving your body the tools to actually use what you're eating. I've seen this in simple, real-life patterns. Someone who adds just 1 or 2 nutrient-dense foods into their daily routine, and over a few weeks, they notice subtle shifts. Standing up feels easier. Walking feels more stable. That constant heaviness in the legs begins to fade. Not overnight, not dramatically, but steadily. And that's really the point. Because rebuilding strength at this stage of life isn't about doing more. It's about doing the right things, consistently, in a way your body can actually respond to. But this is just the beginning. Because once you understand how the body uses protein, the next step becomes much more interesting. So why do these simple foods often work better than expensive powders? It really comes down to something most people never think about: synergy. Because when you eat whole foods, you're not just getting protein in isolation. You're getting a complete package. Protein alongside vitamins, minerals, and natural compounds that help your body actually use that protein more effectively. And that changes everything. For example, your muscles don't just need protein to repair. They also rely on nutrients like magnesium, B vitamins, and trace minerals to support that process. Whole foods deliver these together in the exact balance your body recognizes. But this is just one layer of the story. What surprised me even more is how these foods affect absorption, not just intake. Because it's one thing to eat protein, it's another for your body to break it down, absorb it, and send it where it's needed. Many whole foods naturally contain enzymes or supportive nutrients that make digestion smoother, especially important as the digestive system becomes less efficient with age. And this is where powders often fall short. They may give you a number on a label, but not always the support system behind it. Now here's where it becomes even more practical. These foods don't just support muscle. They often help with digestion, hormone balance, and recovery at the same time. So instead of targeting one area, they quietly support multiple systems in the body, all working together. Think about a simple daily meal. Nothing fancy. But over time, that steady nourishment can feel very different from quick, isolated spikes you might get from a supplement. And that brings us to another key difference: consistency. Whole foods are easier to stick with. They're familiar, affordable, and don't rely on routines that feel forced or artificial. And when something fits naturally into your day, you're far more likely to stay consistent with it. And consistency is where real strength starts to return. You might not notice a dramatic change in a day or two, but over a few weeks, small improvements begin to add up. Better stability, slightly more energy, a bit more confidence in everyday movement. And that's where this really starts to shift. Because now that you understand why these foods work, the next question becomes much more interesting. Which specific foods actually make the biggest difference? And that's exactly what we're about to get into next. Those 6 simple, powerful foods that may support strength in a way most people completely overlook. Let's start with something incredibly simple and often underestimated. Chickpeas. Not flashy, not expensive, but surprisingly effective. Because chickpeas don't just provide plant-based protein, they come with complex carbohydrates, which play a quiet but important role in muscle function. Instead of giving you a quick burst of energy followed by a crash, they release energy slowly, helping your muscles stay fueled throughout the day. And this is something many people notice in subtle ways. You go about your usual routine, walking, standing, climbing a few stairs, and instead of that early fatigue or heaviness, there's just a bit more steadiness, a bit more endurance. But this is just the surface. What makes chickpeas even more valuable is what comes along with that protein. They're naturally rich in magnesium and potassium, 2 minerals your muscles rely on for proper contraction and relaxation. Without enough of these, movements can start to feel tighter, weaker, or less coordinated over time. So it's not just about building muscle. It's about helping muscles function better day to day. Now, in terms of how to actually use them, they don't need to be complicated. A small bowl of roasted chickpeas as a midday snack, or a simple hummus spread with your meal, both are easy, familiar, and sustainable. And that timing matters more than people think. Having them around the middle of the day can provide a steady release of energy, supporting your body when it's most active, rather than loading everything into one heavy meal. And here's a small detail that can make a quiet difference. Pairing chickpeas with a bit of olive oil may help improve the absorption of certain nutrients, making the whole combination more effective without adding any complexity. It's simple, practical, and easy to repeat. But what surprised me even more was how the next food works in a completely different way. Not by providing steady energy, but by directly supporting how muscle repair happens after you eat. Now this one works a little differently, and that contrast is exactly why it matters. Oats. While chickpeas support steady energy through the day, oats step in earlier, helping set the tone for how your body holds on to strength from the very beginning. Because oats provide a combination of slow-digesting carbohydrates and moderate protein, they don't just fuel your morning, they help protect your muscles from being broken down for energy later on. And this is something many people don't realize. If blood sugar rises quickly and then crashes, the body may start pulling energy from muscle tissue. But oats help keep things stable and gradual, which can support muscle preservation over time. But this is just one layer. What surprised me even more is the role of fiber here. Oats are naturally rich in fiber, which supports gut health, and that connection matters more than it seems. A healthier gut can improve how nutrients are absorbed and used, including those involved in muscle repair and maintenance. It's all connected, just not always obvious. Think about a simple morning routine, nothing complicated. A warm bowl of oatmeal, maybe something you've had for years. But when it's paired intentionally, it starts working a little differently. Adding a handful of nuts or seeds gives it texture and added nutrients. And if you mix in some milk or yogurt, you quietly improve the overall protein quality, making it more supportive for muscle repair. That's the difference. Small adjustments, not major changes. And in terms of timing,
This is where oats really stand out. Having them in the morning gives your body a steady, reliable source of energy that carries into the rest of the day, instead of starting with spikes and dips that leave you feeling drained by midday. It's calm, consistent fuel. But here's where it gets interesting. While oats help preserve muscle and stabilize energy, the next food takes a more direct role in actually supporting muscle repair itself, and it does it in a way most people completely overlook.
Now this is where things start to connect even deeper. Black beans. Unlike oats, which focus more on stabilizing energy early in the day, black beans take on a dual role, supporting both muscle maintenance and recovery in a more sustained way. They're naturally rich in protein and fiber, which means they don't just feed your muscles, they help keep that support steady over time. No sharp spikes, no sudden drops, just a gradual, consistent supply your body can work with. And that consistency matters more than most people think, because as the day goes on, energy dips are often what lead to that feeling of weakness or reduced mobility. Black beans help smooth that out, making daily movements feel a bit more manageable. But this is just part of the story. What surprised me even more is how strongly they support gut health. And this might seem unrelated at first, but your gut plays a key role in how your body sends and receives signals for muscle repair and growth. When digestion is working well, your body becomes more efficient at using the nutrients you're already eating. So in a way, black beans aren't just feeding the muscles, they're helping the system behind the muscles work better. Think about a simple lunch, something as basic as beans and rice. It's a combination many people grew up with, but when you look closer, it's actually quite powerful. Together, they form a complete protein, meaning they provide all the essential amino acids your body needs for muscle support. Nothing fancy, just smart pairing. And here's a small detail that can quietly improve the impact. Adding a squeeze of lime may help boost iron absorption, which plays a role in energy and oxygen delivery throughout the body. Now, timing-wise, this is where black beans really fit in. They work well as a midday meal when your body needs both recovery and sustained energy to carry through the rest of the day. And one more practical point, something often overlooked. Properly soaking and preparing beans can make them easier to digest and may improve how well your body absorbs their nutrients. A small step, but one that can make a noticeable difference over time. So again, it's not about complexity. It's about doing simple things a little more intentionally. But here's where the contrast becomes even more interesting. Because while black beans provide steady, long-lasting support, the next food works much faster, almost like a direct signal to your muscles that it's time to repair and rebuild. Now this is where things start to change. Milk. Unlike peanuts, which help maintain steady nourishment between meals, milk works more directly on muscle repair and recovery, especially when your body is at rest. Because milk naturally contains a combination of casein and whey protein, and that balance matters. Whey is absorbed relatively quickly, giving your body a more immediate supply of amino acids, while casein digests slowly, providing a more gradual release over time. Together, they create a kind of short-term and long-term support system for your muscles. And this is something many people overlook. It's not just about getting protein in, it's about how long that support actually lasts inside the body. But this is just one part of the picture. What makes milk even more practical is that it also supports hydration and muscle function at the same time. Along with protein, it provides fluids and essential minerals like calcium, which plays a key role in how muscles contract and relax. So instead of separating hydration and nutrition, milk quietly supports both in one simple step. Think about the end of your day. You've eaten your meals, maybe moved around a bit,
and now your body shifts into repair mode. This is when small habits can make a bigger difference than expected. A warm cup of milk in the evening, or even alongside a meal, can provide a steady stream of nutrients during those recovery hours when the body is naturally rebuilding. And timing here becomes especially important. Having milk after a meal or before bed may help support overnight muscle repair when your body is already in a state of rest and restoration. And here's a small detail that often gets missed. Choosing full-fat milk can improve satiety and may help with the absorption of certain fat-soluble nutrients, making the overall intake feel more complete and satisfying. Again, nothing complicated, just a slight shift in how something familiar is used. But here's the interesting contrast. While milk supports recovery in a steady, sustained way, the final food works more quickly, acting almost like a direct trigger for muscle repair. And this is the one most people don't expect.
And now we come to the one most people rarely think about, but often feel the effects of without realizing it. Pumpkin seeds. Unlike milk, which provides a steady stream of protein for repair, pumpkin seeds work in a more targeted way, supporting the relaxation and recovery phase of your muscles. Because one of their standout nutrients is magnesium. And this is important. Magnesium plays a key role in helping muscles relax after contraction. Without enough of it, muscles can feel tighter, more fatigued, or slower to recover, something many people quietly experience as they get older. But this is just one layer. What surprised me even more is their zinc content, which supports tissue repair and the body's natural rebuilding processes. So while some foods focus on fueling muscles, pumpkin seeds help support the repair environment those muscles depend on. It's subtle, but powerful over time. And alongside that, they also provide a combination of healthy fats and protein, giving your body a small but steady supply of nutrients without overwhelming digestion. Think about the evening hours. Your body is starting to slow down. Muscles that have been used throughout the day are shifting into recovery mode. This is where small, calming inputs can make a quiet difference. A small handful of pumpkin seeds, or simply sprinkling them over a meal, fits naturally into that routine without adding effort. And timing here is what makes them stand out. Having them in the evening may help support that transition into relaxation and recovery, working with your body, not against it. And here's a simple way to make them even more effective. Combining pumpkin seeds with something like yogurt or oats creates a more balanced mix of protein, healthy fats, and slow-digesting nutrients, supporting both recovery and overnight nourishment. Again, simple, repeatable, sustainable. And when you step back and look at all of these foods together, something becomes very clear. None of them are extreme. None of them rely on complicated routines. But each one supports your body in a slightly different way. Energy, absorption, repair, recovery, all working together over time. And that's really the bigger picture. Because strength after 60 isn't rebuilt through one perfect food, but through small, consistent choices that your body can actually use. So as you think about your own routine, the real question becomes, which one of these feels the easiest to start with today? Start there, keep it simple, and give your body a few days to respond, because sometimes the smallest changes are the ones that quietly make the biggest difference. Now, before you expect results from any of these foods, there's something important that often gets in the way. Because it's not always about what you're eating, sometimes it's about the small habits that quietly slow everything down. And most people don't even realize they're doing them.
The first is focusing only on how much protein you're getting, and not how well your body is actually using it. You might hit a certain number every day, feel like you're doing everything right, but if digestion and absorption aren't supported, a portion of that effort simply goes to waste. This is why whole foods, combinations, and balance matter just as much as the total amount. But this is just the beginning. Another common pattern is inconsistency. Eating well for a day or two, then skipping, delaying, or replacing meals the next day. And over time, that stop-and-start rhythm makes it harder for the body to adapt and rebuild. Because muscle support isn't triggered by one good meal, it responds to repeated signals over days and weeks. Now here's something even more subtle. Meal timing. Many people either eat too little during the day and too much at night, or go long stretches without giving their body anything to work with. And during those gaps, the body may begin pulling from its own reserves, including muscle. Spacing your meals and snacks more evenly can make a quiet but meaningful difference. Let me ask you this for a second. How often do you go several hours without eating and then try to make up for it all at once? That pattern alone can slow progress more than the type of food itself. And then there's the quality of what you're eating. Relying too heavily on overly processed foods, even if they're labeled as high protein, can limit the additional nutrients your body needs for proper repair and function. You get the number, but not the full support system behind it. And finally, one of the most overlooked pieces, not combining foods in a way that improves synergy. Simple pairings like beans with rice or adding healthy fats alongside certain nutrients can improve how well your body absorbs and uses what you eat. Without that, even good foods don't reach their full potential. None of these mistakes are dramatic. They're small, easy to overlook, and very common. But when you adjust them, even slightly, you start to remove the friction that's been holding your progress back. And this is where everything begins to come together.
At the end of all this, the message is actually very simple, but powerful. Because when it comes to muscle health after 60, it's not about chasing the most expensive supplements or the most complicated routines. It comes down to something much more sustainable: consistency. Not perfection, not extremes, just steady, repeatable habits that your body can actually respond to over time. And this is where real food has a clear advantage. Because your body is built to recognize and use whole foods more naturally. They come in a form your digestion understands, along with the vitamins, minerals, and supporting compounds that help everything work together more efficiently. So instead of isolating nutrients in a lab-made scoop, you're giving your body a complete, familiar system it already knows how to process. But this is the part most people underestimate. You don't need to get everything perfect. You don't need to follow every rule at once. What actually matters is small daily actions that you can maintain without stress. Foods you can repeat, meals you can rely on, habits that don't feel like a burden. Because over time, those small choices start to add up in a very real way. Energy feels a little steadier. Movement feels a bit easier. Recovery doesn't feel as slow as it used to. Not because of one dramatic change, but because of consistent support. And when you look at it that way, the idea becomes much simpler. You don't need more complexity. You need more consistency. And that's exactly why these affordable, everyday foods matter. They don't just support your muscles, they make it realistic to stay consistent long enough to actually see change. So start simple, stay steady, and let time do the rest. Before you move on, take a moment and reflect on this. Because strength after 60 isn't built through sudden changes. It's built through small, consistent choices that actually fit into real life. If this helped you see things a little differently, here's what you can do next. Comment below your age and your biggest strength challenge right now, whether it's low energy, weakness, or just feeling less steady than before. It helps others realize they're not alone in this. And if you know someone who's quietly struggling with tiredness, weakness, or loss of strength, share this with them. Sometimes a simple shift in daily food habits can be the starting point for real change. And for more practical, science-based senior health tips focused on simple foods, mobility, and everyday strength, subscribe and stay tuned for what's coming next. Because small changes today can shape how strong you feel tomorrow.